just recently
follow
did.
up with him. He came in and
Typically, I'm not
talked to
too keen
Ron,
on people
and he was
bringing
supposed to
fill
get
in and
soil
doing
erosion
something like that
permits and
without a
such
plan
through
in
the
place.
county.
There's always something in the background. It's
dumping
never as
stuff, yeah,
straightforward.
and
Learned it the
flooding.
hard way. But he came and that's what he said. He's not doing other things.
Good evening. Welcome to the Charter Township of Van Buren Planning Commission meeting for Wednesday, May 14th, 2025. Calling the meeting to order. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, could we have a roll call, please?
Sherry Budd,
Here.
Bernie Grant, Peter Creel.
Here.
Medina Atchison is excused. Jackson Paul.
Here.
Jeff Jar.
Here.
Brian Cullen.
Here. At this time, we have before us an agenda. Do we have any action concerning the agenda?
Mr. Chair, I move to accept the agenda as submitted.
We have a motion to accept the agenda as presented and supported. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Seeing none. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we also have before us the minutes of the meeting of April 23rd, 2025. Do we have any action concerning the minutes of the meeting?
Through the chair, make a motion, we approve the minutes from the regular meeting of April 23rd, 2025 as presented.
Support.
We have a motion to accept the minutes of April 23rd, 2025 and support. Do we have any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chairman, I want to recognize that our secretary did an excellent job of including the text of our consultant in the motion. I reviewed it and found it to be accurate as always.
Good. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, moving ahead. Correspondence and announcements?
Mr. Chairman, at a recent meeting, it was pointed out to me by a member of the public who watches our meetings over the cable channel and also over YouTube that the microphone levels were not very high previously. And I believe our AV people have adjusted them because they sound a lot louder today. I just wanted to acknowledge and thank the individual who brought that to our attention and lets us fix the problem so that we can communicate better.
Very good. Very good. Yes, sounds much, much better.
I can hear myself, that's for sure.
Okay, any other correspondence announcements?
Received correspondence in regards to the battery energy storage systems. Would we like to read that now?
Sure.
We received an email from Stephen Dark in regards to the battery energy storage systems. It says, I would like to make a recommendation about battery energy storage systems. In my opinion, the township's ordinance should require opaque screening around them, solid vinyl fence, masonry wall, etc. I believe that would be a lot better than looking at a security fence with shipping containers inside of it. Also, in addition to providing screening, it also creates an opportunity to enhance the appearance of the BES with some architectural elements and will potentially reduce any noise coming from the property. Thank you for any and all consideration. Stephen Dark.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any others? Okay, at this time, we have general comment from the public on any item not mentioned in the agenda and of personal concern. Seeing none, moving ahead. We have a public hearing, item number 1, exterior lighting standards, Article 8, environmental performance, section 8.105, exterior lighting. This time, we need to open the public hearing.
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
Support.
Motion to open and support the public, for the opening the public hearing. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none. Time for the public to speak. Anybody from the public wishing to comment on the exterior lighting standards? No, no.
The question from the audience was, did that have to do with the Auto Lab agenda item? And it doesn't. This is an exterior lighting standards public hearing for a proposed ordinance change. We'll let you know when, Mr. Chairman.
We'll get you. We're not going to forget you. Do we have anybody from the public? Not hearing any. I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Through the motion, through the chair, I make a motion to adjourn.
Whoa, whoa,
Discussion
whoa,
of the
whoa, whoa,
emotion.
whoa, whoa. To close the public?
public hearing.
Okay.
Support closing the public hearing, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Boy, you want this over quick, Sherry. We have a motion to close the public hearing and support. Do we have any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Moving on, item number 2. In the public hearing, regulating signage for residential developments. Article 11, Section 11.108A, sign regulations applicable to AG, R1, R2, RM, and RMH districts. At this point, we'd entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, I move to open the public hearing.
Second.
Motion to open the public hearing and to support. Any discussion? All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? A public hearing is open. Do we have anyone from the public to discuss? Anyone from the public with comments? And finally, anyone from the public? Then I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Through the chair, make a motion to close the public hearing.
Support.
A motion and support to close the public hearing. Any discussion? All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving ahead. New business. Item number 1, case 25-013, Auto Lab facade amendment. A request by applicant Mark Sullivan on behalf of owner Dulce Motors to amend the upper facade color. The site is located at 10625 Belleville Road. First up, presentation by township staff.
Thank you. With my review letter from April 23rd, 2025, Auto Lab is an existing automotive supply and minor repair establishment located in the C1 General Business District. The township received an application for a sign permit showing the front upper facade painted white, again to contrast with the proposed red sign, with the rest of the upper facade on the other sides of the building remaining red. Staff later determined that the front facade had already been painted. Within my review, I looked at the primary building colors. The primary building cladding colors should be chosen from the Belleville Road color palette of red and brown for brick and other warm earth tones for other primary building materials. Prohibited primary colors, intense bright black or fluorescent colors shall be used sparingly and only as accents. Such colors shall not be used as the predominant color of any wall or roof of any building. Permitted signs shall be excluded from this standard. Color changes, material, or color changes shall not occur at external corners, but may occur at interior corners or at other logical terminations. All material or color changes shall be reviewed by the township, and township authorization is required prior to any material or color changes. Color maintenance for the exterior building colors age well and shall be relatively low maintenance in terms of frequency of touch-ups and repainting. With my recommendation, we recognize that the change to white for the upper facade is generally more compatible with the BROD standards and surrounding area than the former red, despite it being rather bright and susceptible to weathering. White allows for greater visibility of the wall sign and is less intense than the former red. I recommend approval of this proposed color change, subject to the following conditions. The upper facade shall be painted white. The entire upper facade shall be painted white to match the front, and the facade shall be maintained as necessary to avoid the appearance of weathering, defects, or dirt. I will take any questions.
Thank you. And now, presentation by the applicant. Come up to the podium for us, please, and state your name. Into the, yep. If you'd introduce yourself, please.
Callahan. I work for Mark Sullivan at Autolab.
Okay, and what do you have before us? What happened?
I'm in on the middle of this. I don't know how it began. I was the lucky one that, well, Mark is supposed to be here tonight, but he couldn't make it because of traffic. So I'm just here to represent Autolab. Steve Wilson couldn't make it as well. My understanding is they bought the building, or they bought the business, they turned it into an Autolab. I believe it was a tire store before. They had some painting done on the exterior, they had a sign made, and apparently when the person that made the sign went out and sent something to Van Buren Township, apparently that's when they said, whoa, 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 you weren't supposed to paint anything, you were supposed to get a permit first. They did not know that. So I took some pictures today and printed them off to show you guys in case you didn't have anything. I wasn't sure what you did have or didn't have. So I brought these along if you're interested in seeing these. See them?
Is there a way to project them on the overhead?
We've got the color already.
And we do have a color rendering in our report. This, I guess, is the existing painted by others simulated night view.
See, I don't know what it looked like before. I didn't have pictures from that to tell you what it was before as to the changes now. Or not, right?
Mr. Chairman, while Brittany's just getting that started, I did want to point out that the two light fixtures you see on the front facade, neither one of them is shielded, and they do not meet our ordinance standards for shielded light fixtures. So those two fixtures, if the Planning Commission add it, either shields need to be added to them, or they need to be replaced with downward directed shielded fixtures. These two are not in compliance with code.
So to my knowledge, this is where they're gonna, the intention is to put the new sign on that white area. A light up
We'll
sign.
hear her when she doesn't talk in the microphone.
Could you, Mr. Chairman, could you ask the applicant to repeat that? I didn't
Yes,
catch it.
would
It
you
wasn't in the
please?
microphone, I'm sorry.
Yes.
To my knowledge, the white area is where they wanna hang the new sign. It will be a lighted sign. I have not seen the sign myself. Maybe you folks have photos of that, I'm not sure. But that is, my understanding is the intention.
Oh, there we go.
So I tried to take from different angles to show. And the dark is actually dark gray. It's not a true black.
Any others?
Now, do the lights, if there's lights on the side of the building there, along where do those have to be downward facing or shielded as well?
All of those fixtures are non-compliant. All of those have to be shielded or replaced.
So when they're updating this, that's when they have to go through with the,
They could possibly retroactively add shields, but I think it's just cheaper to replace the fixture over trying to add a shield onto an old fixture. That's what I think, but it's up to them which way they want, but they need to be made compliant.
And does Mr. Sullivan know that? Is he aware of that?
No, I just saw it because I don't review. This is administratively reviewed. I just saw the photograph and noticed that the fixtures were not shielded.
Mr. Chairman, are we in discussion or questions for applicants?
I believe, are you done? Do you have anything else to add? Let me put it that way. It's a little more.
I have a couple more photos, but it basically shows the red side. So I don't have anything unless you folks have questions, but.
Mr. Chairman, could the applicant cycle through the photos quickly just so we can get a look at them?
Sure.
Okay, sure.
Got it?
Uh-oh.
There we go.
There we go, perfect.
So, I mean, to me, I think the building is nice looking. I'm not sure if the color scheme has to be corrected. The lights, if that's, I would assume we would do that at the same time we would hang the sign. Okay. Okay. So, did you want to see the other pictures again?
No, I'm.
Okay.
The chair, can I add something? They are also doing a new business walkthrough right now. They submitted the application for that at the same time. When they do the new business walkthrough, we would look at the light fixtures and such at that time as well. So if we didn't add anything onto this, it would be added onto that new business walkthrough as well.
Okay, is there commission?
I have a question.
Yes.
A question for
Excuse me.
So this building predates the Belleville Road Overlay District, correct?
Likelihood,
You know,
yes.
like my memory says that predates the Belleville Road.
The building
It's an old
design,
building.
yeah.
And so my question then is that this would be, when it was painted white or possibly red, it was what's known as a legal non-conforming structure. It doesn't match the B-ROD overlay standards, but neither has it undergone a site plan renewal. So it's a legal non-conforming structure, non-conforming to the Belleville Road Overlay District, right?
Right.
And the issue before us is that you do need to get, everybody in the Belleville Road Overlay District needs to get a painting permit because they have to conform to a certain color scheme, or it has to be reviewed that they are an existing legal non-conforming structure that's simply redoing maintenance. And that now, so I understand, it's okay to paint a legal non-conforming structure in the same set of colors that it always has been in, as long as those colors don't increase a nonconformity.
So whenever you make changes to a non-conforming structure, the changes should be done to bring it closer into compliance with the
Close.
ordinance standards to the extent feasible. In this case, the white is a neutral color. Belleville Road Overlay District recommends warm earth tones. Neutral could be considered in the same palette. It's definitely more in line than the harsh red.
But if I can say that the Belleville Road Overlay District also has a specific requirement that a roof line on an exterior corner, the colors have to match all the way around. So whether this was white or red, it would be acceptable. What's unacceptable, because it increases the nonconformity, is the white and the red. And that's what's at issue, right?
Yes, that is what's in my letter for
Yeah.
that part, yes.
That's what I thought.
Yep.
I just wanted to
Yes.
make sure I understood it entirely. And so what the applicant is, what we're being requested is to grant a modification of the upper facade color to white because it is a better match with the Belleville Road Overlay District, and definitely not white and red. It's got to be white all the way across. That's the ask.
Yes.
Got it. And of course, the light fixtures need to be updated too. Has the sign package been reviewed?
When I reviewed it and we stopped when we noticed on there, it stated, "Existing at site is the red, building painted by others." And then I contacted Auto Lab to see if it had already, or who was painting it, and to let them know that they would have to come before Planning Commission before they paint anything. And I happened to drive by and saw it was already painted.
Right, okay. And last question, to your eye, does that the Auto Lab proposed sign look like it meets their sign requirements?
I believe it does. I did not finish my review once we realized I had to come for this before we finished that.
Okay, okay. I'm not sure, Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure that it does meet it. It looks long. I mean, it looks like it's too long of a sign to actually meet it. But I don't have the metrics in front of it, so I don't have a ruler. I can't actually verify it, which is why I wanted to get to whether or not staff had got to that step yet. Mr. Chair, I don't know if the applicant understands the painting requirement. It can't be two-tone.
But it has to all be white? Okay. Red, change the red to white.
Is that still what you're recommending? Okay.
I don't really have any other questions. You know, I think I understand the situation. I think it'd be, when that site gets a full site plan review, earth tones, Belleville Road overlay. But it's not a full site plan review, and a legal non-conforming structure doesn't have to be brought into compliance until there is a full site plan review. You just can't make it less compliant. That's all. So I get it. I think I'm okay with the ask, as long as the paint request is to paint the whole top white, and we'll throw in a condition that says you're gonna have to do something about the non-compliant light fixtures. Then I'd be okay with the ask.
Okay.
I'm glad you have a business moving in there, and you know
Absolutely.
that's
Good. We've been busy, so, yeah.
super.
It's been very good, so we like it.
Good. Anybody else? Comments? Seeing none? I would entertain a motion concerning this item.
Mr. Chairman, I would be happy to move to grant modification of the upper facade color at the site located at 10065 Belleville Road, based on the analysis, and of course, subject to the conditions in the letter of staff from April 23rd, 2025. Noting that the entire facade shall be painted white, and also noting that the exterior light fixtures must be brought into compliance with standards.
Support.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jar, supported by Commissioner Grant. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Bernie Grant,
Yes.
Sherry Budd,
Yes.
Jackson Paul, Jeff Jar,
Yes.
Brian Cullen.
Yes. Motion carries. So just have to meet with them now with the signage.
Okay, so we do not have the okay to hang the sign.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, so you'll. I will email you the local standards and everything. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Moving on, item number 2. Exterior lighting standards. Article 8, Environmental Performance Section 8.105, Exterior Lighting. Presentation by the township staff. Brittany?
I will defer to our principal planner, Vidya Krishnan.
Thanks, Brittany. Good evening, Commissioners. Before you tonight is an amendment to the lighting ordinance. The Planning Commission has seen this twice before. We are amending this ordinance in response to concerns received from multiple businesses that were previously approved by the township, where our existing lighting levels were too low for public safety. So there was a lot of concern that the lighting we are asking was too low. So we looked into it and we realized it was indeed too low. In some cases, it was, especially in winters when it gets dark earlier, we are talking about outside restaurants, in public sidewalks, there isn't enough illumination to see. As a result of which, the only way a developer or an applicant could compensate for it is by adding more light poles, more fixtures on the building wall, which are unnecessary. So we looked at other communities. We revised our lighting standards to be consistent with what is typically required for safety based upon our research and other municipalities also. We added in a whole bunch of definitions because we use lumen, Kelvin, foot candle, so people can understand what exactly these terms mean. We did add a standard about the warmth or the cooling of light fixtures, and that alone can make a light look extremely harsh, or it can be gentler on the eyes. So we added the color, temperature, and that is not too difficult because whenever a lighting plan is prepared by a lighting company, a photometric plan, it automatically has the Kelvin rating. They already have that information, so we are not adding a burden on anybody. They already have that information. We are just saying you need to stick to it. We did add limitations on accent lighting for buildings, so the architectural features and all are highlighted, and that's based on research we did of actual landscaping and building accent lighting companies, what their recommended lighting standards were. We added clarification under exempt lighting to exempt solar stakes, so if people just have those stuck in the ground, that's not included. We have added an exemption for illumination for the flag of the United States of America and any similar state, federal, or local laws or flags related to that or signs related to that. That is not governed by this ordinance. An important thing was us asking for a proper photometric plan to be submitted that is legible and superimposed on top of the site plan. Because most often we would get plans where you can't really even read what is written, and we are asking for revisions. They might as well give us the proper plan at the beginning. So I believe with this ordinance, our lighting will be up to date, and it will be business friendly while still controlling night glow or meeting dark sky requirements. I'm happy to answer any questions. The action before you tonight, if you're satisfied with it, is to make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, comments, questions?
I think it looks great, and I thank everyone who worked on it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I like it.
I like the legibility clause quite a bit. I've spent a lot of time straining on those plans, even the big printouts, to try to figure out what they're saying, so excellent there. I like that although the definitions section seems, it seems technical and verbose, that's what the industry uses. So this is going to look this should be business friendly for our developers and for the businesses coming in. I think, I'm real happy. I think it's great. I think we should recommend it.
Yeah, I like it. And the definitions definitely, it lets anybody,
Yeah.
whether it's a resident or anybody, they now have an understanding of what those terms mean, even when they look at a light in a store somewhere. So I do like it. Anybody else? Anything from the public? The public, I would entertain an action on this item.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to move to recommend to the Township Board that they adopt the proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance text to section 8105 exterior lighting as described in the meeting packet this evening with no other concerns or conditions.
Support.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jar, support by Commissioner Grant. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Roll call vote, please.
Jackson Paul,
Yes.
Peter Creel,
Yes.
Bernie Grant, Sherry Budd, Jeff Jar,
Yes.
Brian Cullen.
Yes. Okay, so with this, we'll move on to the Township Board. Item number 3, regulating signage for residential developments. Article 11, Section 11.108A, sign regulations applicable to AG, R1, R2, RM, and RMH districts. Presentation from the Township staff.
Thank you. I will again defer to Vidya Krishnan.
Thank you, Brittany. So the ordinance amendment regarding signage that is before the commission tonight is once again a result of what we encountered when we received proposal for a residential development. We have not had a new residential development in a long time, so this section of the ordinance was really never applied to any development until the first one came along, and then we saw that a sign ordinance says the identification sign for a single-family subdivision, site condo, or mobile home park has to be set 30 feet behind the front property line. At 30 feet, the sign is not even going to be visible, and somebody who's looking for the development is going to drive right past it without being able to see. The whole point of a sign is identification, wayfinding. So not sure where that original 30 feet came from. It's just an unusual standard that was not there anywhere else. So we are recommending a change to, based upon our comparison to all other communities, pretty much 10 feet from the public right-of-way or the property line, whichever is greater is the standard. And we are recommending that the sign be placed next to the vehicle entrance so that people know where to turn in. So that is a small amendment to the ordinance, basically is making it easier to find these developments, turn in and out of them. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. The action before you tonight, if you're satisfied with this change, is to send it to the Board of Trustees.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, comments?
Mr. Chairman, I think it's better to have it closer to the road than further away. When those housing developments were going in and they were the only development out in the middle of the country, it didn't matter so much. Your sign was 30 feet back. But, you know, we're a growing community and starting to fill in a little bit more, and I think it's a good idea to have the signs closer to the road where they are more visible for people looking for multiple subdivisions along a particular route. It seems like a very straightforward change and a reasonable and good one.
Anyone else? Any others? I like it. I think also adds for safety, I believe. Somebody looking for a subdivision, if it's recessed, might drive by and then slam the brakes on and who knows what. So I like the idea. Do we have anybody from the public with a comment?
No.
Seeing nothing, I would entertain an action on this item.
Through the chair,
Commissioner Grant.
I'd like to make a recommendation to the Township Board to adopt the revision to the sign regulations, Article 11, Section 11.108A. And I don't have to reference the McKenna letter, right? I wouldn't think so. Or should I?
Just say, based on the presentation this evening, probably be fine.
Based on the presentation this evening.
Support.
We have a motion by Commissioner Grant, excuse me, I apologize, and supported by Commissioner Paul. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Sherry Budd,
Yes.
Bernie Grant,
Yes.
Peter Creel,
Yes.
Jackson Paul,
Yes.
Jeff Jar,
Yes.
Brian Cullen.
Yes. Okay, we're sending that onward to the board. Very good. Item number 4. Gas station ordinance, proposed text amendment. Presentation by the township staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Township Board of Trustees in January passed a resolution at which time they placed a moratorium on any new gas stations coming into the township to address the sudden influx of gas stations that we were seeing. If the Planning Commission recalls, you had to approve 2 gas stations at the same corner where there is already a gas station not so long ago. The challenge with doing a special land use approval review for that, whether it meets the need, was both applications were turned in on the exact same day, at the exact same time. So it is difficult to evaluate and say this one met the need and this one did not. I mean, so that created a real big conundrum. So the Township Board was concerned that the lack of adequate spacing between these facilities posed a concern to public health, safety, and welfare. And those with drive-through are common. I don't think any gas stations are built that do not have a drive-through or a restaurant component attached to it. That adds more traffic to these intersections, and when you have multiple of these in the same area, you have intersection traffic, you have stacking on the main roads itself, you have stacking within the site, circulation issues, so much more going on. So the Board of Trustees placed a moratorium which expires in June, on June 21st, 2025, next month, so that the township would have an opportunity to review the ordinance and see what we can do about this and how we can address this public safety concern. So we first did a research to see just how many gas stations we had. So the township currently has 14 gas stations. 12 of those are existing, and then 2 others are the 2 that you approved at the intersection of Ecorse and Haggerty. Now, if we include all the gas stations within the city of Belleville and along the township's borders, like if you look at it exactly on the Romulus side, if you look exactly on the Ypsilanti side, on the Canton side, no, we didn't count any on the Canton side. On the south side and Sumter, now we have Belleville, I'm sorry, we have a total of 19 gas stations.
That's this map.
No. Yes, that's the map that is actually attached in your packet, that actually shows you with blue dots, the ones that are located in the township, and with red triangle that are not located within the township. Now, the gas stations that are in the township are all mostly concentrated on the eastern half of the township itself. Gas stations are a special land use in the C1 and C2 zoning districts. They are also not permitted in the B-Rod north of Tyler Road. After the speedway went in, that's when the B-Rod regulations went in, and it prohibited any more gas stations north of Tyler Road on the B-Rod. So even if there are C1, C2 zone parcels north on Belleville Road, it cannot be developed as a gas station because the B-Rod prohibits it. So then zoning ordinance, if the zoning ordinance, we looked at spacing. So if you look at the map we created for you, the green color circle is a 1/4 mile radius around the existing gas stations. The blue circle is now a 1/2 mile radius around each one of these. Once we did the separation blue, we put the green circle in, and once you put the green circle in, the parcels that are likely that can be developed as gas station are the ones in yellow highlights. That leaves a grand total of 6 sites that would still be feasible for gas station. It doesn't mean gas stations will go in here or necessarily meet the ordinance standards. It just means that these parcels have the potential for somebody to apply for consideration as a gas station. Now, 1/4 mile is actually 1,320 feet. Now, if we try to increase this distance to 1/2 mile, which goes to 2,640 feet, that will leave only 2 parcels that are viable for gas station, and both of them will be along the western edge of the township. One will be at Michigan Avenue on the northwest corner of the township, and another will be along Rossonville Road. Those are the only 2 viable options that will be left if you increase it to a 1/2 mile radius. Now, the amendment that we have proposed recommends a 1/4 mile separation distance based upon our research into lots of other communities. Many other communities we looked at generally have no separation requirements. The couple that we found had 800 feet as the separation requirement, and one of them is actually considering reducing that 800 now to 400. Don't know why, but they are under consideration. So we feel if you have a quarter-mile separation distance, it allows for a gas station to be located at a sufficient distance from another gas station and allows for safe movements in and out. We're talking about 1,320 feet. And this distance is measured from property line to property line. So the gas stations are typically illuminated for 24 hours. Now, when you add a drive-through facility, there is more lighting for safety reasons. And then you have speakers where orders are placed. So the adverse impacts on the neighboring properties get compounded when they're close together. By separating them out, you're making sure that any adverse impacts from them are not compounded on whatever is nearby. Over-concentration of these also takes away the look of the entire neighborhood. Whether it's residential or not, an area cluttered with a lot of gas stations is not a desirable look. Gas stations are allowed in C1 and C2 zoning districts, but those are not the only uses. We permit a host of uses in both C1 and C2, and many one of them are designed for neighborhood scale development. We hope there is pizza joints or barber shops or other things that people can even walk to or drive to, not necessarily always be an automotive-oriented drive-through use. And last of all, the biggest concern also is overbuilt gas station markets sometimes will result in a gas station not being viable and being abandoned. Once a gas station is abandoned, it can almost never be used for any other land use because it becomes a brownfield due to the tanks in the ground. The cost of brownfield rehabilitation and remediation is so expensive now to get the site clean enough for any other site to occupy it. It pretty much can't be used for anything except a gas station forever. And if it is not viable as a gas station, it's going to sit as a vacant, blighted property for a really long time. So you don't want to cluster them. You want to give enough of these businesses a chance to survive and succeed. We put too much together, then they won't have the opportunity individually to succeed. So the reason why we presented all these conditions is we don't want it to be perceived that the township does not want any gas stations in the community. It merely recognizes that we have a lot of gas stations already, a lot of them with drive-thrus. So additional considerations with regard to spacing needs to be taken into account to prevent over-concentration of these in any one area, leading to adverse impacts from them. So the amendment that we have prepared for you, actually, not so long ago, the township, we did not have any standards for gasoline filling stations. So a few years ago, the township actually adopted section 5.144 under the development standards for specific use, where we put in canopy setbacks on residential properties, ingress and egress. We have a whole bunch of design recommendations already to ensure that these are well-designed sites. What we did not anticipate is all of them coming onto the same corner. So now we are adding a clause in for separation distance. It says a gas station shall be located a minimum distance of 1/4 mile or 1,320 feet from another gas station. The distance shall be measured as the shortest distance between the property lines. Gasoline filling stations that do not meet the separation distance requirement and that are in existence as of the date of adoption of this amendment shall be considered as legal non-conforming structures. A gasoline filling station in existence prior to the adoption of this amendment shall be permitted to be rebuilt completely, provided the newly built facility conforms to all other provisions of this section and the zoning ordinance. The reason why this clause has been added in, typically if it is a non-conforming structure, if it is burnt more than 50% of its net value, you're not allowed to rebuild it. The non-conforming structure cannot. But it brings us back to the problem, if a gas station does burn down more than 50%, the site really cannot be used for anything else. By not allowing the gas station to be rebuilt, you're taking away the only viable land use available for that parcel. And there has been legal precedents before where a gas station that did not burn down, this happened in Oakland County, where the gas station was no longer allowed in that zoning district. This was an existing gas station that was closed, that had stopped its business for 365 days. They were actively trying to sell it all the time, but it never sold. The 365 days, the non-conformity period passed. After that, the municipality said, no, you cannot restart the gas station. Your 365-day period is over. It's no longer a non-conforming use. The property owner sued the municipality, and the court supported the property owner. They said as long as the property owner was actively trying to sell the property and the use is not considered as abandoned. So there has to be active abandonment. In this case, a use that is still functioning, that caught fire or for whatever reason burned down, it technically has not been abandoned. It's just something unfortunate happened to bring it to that situation. So we don't want to set up a situation where we are legally challenged in saying you've written an ordinance that basically says if something happens to our livelihood beyond our control, natural gas explosion, something happens, you're telling us we are being punished for it because now we are non-conforming, you're not going to let us rebuild. So the clause is put in to protect those existing gas stations that are already there. They can continue to operate, they can continue to maintain the property. We want the properties maintained, which is allowed under our ordinance. But if something unfortunate should happen, which causes them to burn down, we will allow them to be rebuilt because there is only limited uses that could possibly be there. But the ordinance recognizes that any new use that comes in must conform to all of the provisions of the section and the spacing requirement. That would still leave only 6 viable sites per the map. I'll briefly go over those sites. One site is on Rawsonville Road. It is, I think it is an old bank or something that's been abandoned for a while, where there is some opportunity for them to look at for a gas station. One is on Michigan Avenue. That used to be a former motel, hotel, some kind of facility that the township initiated condemnation proceedings on, and we cleaned it up because it was in real bad shape. The other site will be, it is just north of I-94 North Service Drive. You see the parcel that is marked in this circle as C1. The chance of that being developed is almost, it can never be 0, but it is very, very slim because it does not have frontage directly onto the service drive. It does not have frontage onto the freeway. It's just an awkwardly shaped C1 parcel that is right next to US Ecology's dump site. So it's a very odd place for it, but it's still a C1 parcel. We have this parcel that is right in between the border with Romulus and Ecorse and Haggerty. Yes, the parcel on the east end where we had not so long ago approved 2 gas stations. There is a narrow sliver of that C1 parcel, but that parcel is heavily wooded. It's got wetlands on it, and it's got a major county drain running right through the middle of it. So the environmental limitations on the property are significant. To develop it as a gas station is extremely challenging, if not, you have to relocate a whole county drain, you have to do wetland mitigation, don't know where you can mitigate it because the whole site is pretty much that. So that is one. Then if you look at on the Haggerty Road, when you come down south, this tiny little yellow dot that you see, it is the most unusual parcel. It's a residential home on a residential street. I have no idea why the parcel is zoned C1, but it is. It can never accommodate a gas station for the simple reason that it does not meet the frontage on a major thoroughfare, or it does not meet the paving requirements. It's a parcel that is shaped almost like a pie, so you're not going to have enough room to put in a building footprint, a canopy, and circulation. It's not going to be possible, but it's an odd little C1 parcel. So basically, those are the only C1 parcels that would be left that is viable. So our recommendation to you tonight, since the moratorium is June 21st, is if you have any corrections, I'm happy to make them, but if you would set this for a public hearing so that you would have an opportunity to act on it, send it to the board, and the board can actually adopt it before the moratorium period runs out. Happy to answer any questions.
Planning Commission. Commissioners, questions?
I have a question for Ms. Krishnan.
Yes.
One of the issues that that drove this, like you brought up, was the 3 gas stations on one intersection, 2 permits arriving on exactly the same day.
Yeah.
That sounds like an issue of simultaneity showing up, but this set of ordinance changes doesn't really address the simultaneity issue. If two applicants showed up at the same intersection on the same day and both wanted to put a gas station in there, I know the ordinance says only one is gonna be allowed. How does that get addressed to the applicant? With the 2 applicants on the same day? You understand what I'm asking?
Yes, so if you look at the map, none of the parcels you're looking at is located at a street intersection. So there are no 2 corners. There's only one parcel where they can be. Only one person can.
Commissioner, it ain't gonna happen. Okay, I understand.
Only one person can come before you with a request. None of them are at an intersection where they can, it will not recreate the odd situation we found ourselves
Got it,
in.
because none of the other intersections are currently zoned C1
Yes.
in the first place?
Yes.
I got it.
I just
see
wanted
that.
to point out that the Ecos Haggerty Road intersection where that old BP gas station is, that's not Zone C-way. That is our only freeway service zoned parcel in the entire township. We have a freeway service. That's the only parcel that was left. The township took out freeway service zoning a long time ago, but that parcel was left as freeway service. That's the only parcel. Freeway service is the only zoning designation that permits truck stop, and that's the one.
I had one other question, Mr. Chair. I know, I was trying to figure out why I didn't fully understand why you put in the date of adoption and you're still allowed to build a gas station. I didn't realize the full details of the, rebuilding the non-conforming structure or after a period of abandonment. And I think that's really good, and the way you've explained it. Oh, I get that, and that is absolutely necessary. If the gas station needs to be rebuilt, and it happens to be within whatever radius to another gas station, we should let them still rebuild it, right? I
That
mean,
was
that's-
Director Akers' concern too. He said, we don't want the spacing requirement to retroactively be punitive on existing gas stations. That's not the
No.
intent. The intent is to plan for the future and make sure we don't get this same thing coming back before you again, and we limit it. And basically, based upon the map, I would say your viable sites are probably 2, even though there are 6. So 2 is possibly.
My question regarding that, it is great, I think it's an excellent addition, but my question was, it has words in there about, from the date of adoption of this, from this ordinance. How does someone reading the Code of Ordinances know what the date of the adoption of the ordinance was? I know that happens in other places in the ordinance. I know I've asked this question before, and I know there's an answer, I just don't remember
At
it.
the end of every section, there'll be an adoption date and an amendment date listed on there in Municode. It'll tell you when it was last adopted or amended.
So it's actually in the Municode copy.
At the
There's a
end of
date with the
every
end of that.
section, it will say over there, ordinance original date, every amendment date will be simultaneously listed over there. So they can see the last date, they'll know it was
See, I knew there
adopted.
was an answer. I knew it was a good one, too.
Anyone else? Comments? Questions?
I have a question, and I know it probably will never happen again. But at Hager Road in the North Service Drive, we
Yes.
had the BP, and then we had the mobile that was rebuilt, and now they're both open.
Yes.
If the ordinance had been in place, because they'd already been there, they would both be there. Would we ever get into a situation, because on the other side, on the north side of Hagerty and the expressway, it was decided they couldn't be because of residential, and then on the other side, there's no space for one. So having them two probably helps traffic, because people aren't making a lot of left-hand turns because they can go into, but depending on which way they're going. Hopefully, they look at that rather than try to make a lot of lefts at that corner. Would we ever be in a situation, it doesn't look like it, where we would have 2 that would be beneficial to be across from each other, so they wouldn't meet the quarter mile, they wouldn't meet the ordinance? Would that ever happen again?
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying.
No, I'm not, what's,
Can I, Commissioner, just to, if I understand correctly, you're saying that if we were to adopt, and I think the recommendation is the quarter mile separation, that quarter mile absolutely prohibits at a 4-way intersection. It will absolutely prohibit more than one gas station at
Correct.
a 4-way intersection.
Right.
And I think four gas stations on each corner, that's way too many.
Right.
3 is way too many. 1 is great. Is there a case for there being 2? Because, when you're pulling off at a freeway, sometimes you might want to pull into the gas station that is the easy right-hand turn based on the way you're coming off of the freeway, rather than having to come off the freeway and turn around, go over the freeway overpass, and go to the one gas station that's left. I think, is that what
Right,
should
and
we have
that's-
some kind of
And that's what would
override?
have happened if both those stations hadn't been there.
Correct.
Right.
There would have been a case to have it over there, but I don't think we have any other intersection left where that would be beneficial.
Looked like there was, but I just wanted to clear up that we
Yes.
weren't going to be having somebody looking at that again.
No, we are not. Yeah. That's a good point. I was not following. Okay, yeah.
Version of Sim City, and there was a wide open 36 square miles, I might want to think about whether or not 2 was an allowable number, but since the current zoning and the future land use says that's not going to happen,
Somebody eastbound on 94 will have to take a left to head towards this intersection. Somebody going westbound can just go take a right and go. Yes, it won't allow it in the future, but we don't have any other intersections left. But yes, if we didn't have both, it wouldn't have allowed one of them.
We know we had someone that wanted to go on the north side, but they just didn't have the right zoning for all they wanted. Right.
I have a question. Gas stations. Suppose somebody wanted to put in an EV station, fueling station. Would they fall under the same requirements as this? Have we defined gas stations for exactly what they are, or do we need to specify that a little bit more?
So right now, we have only gasoline filling stations, and EVs are an accessory use if somebody wants to put a charging station. We have a draft EV ordinance that's not yet come before you. When the draft EV ordinance comes, it will fall under the same clause. It is still same use, right? It's automotive centric, the turn in, turn out. I have not seen an EV exclusive station anywhere over here. I haven't even heard of one. And with EV vehicles not exactly getting super popular as was expected, I think there is no going to be dedicated EV station. It's always going to be EV with the fuel.
Do we understand then also, can we also use the term, if somebody wanted to put in a station that was just diesel fuel? I'm just worried about the classification of somebody coming and saying, oh geez, I'm putting in a diesel station or natural gas station for these cars. Would that fall under the idea of the gas station? Because I think that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, to add to that, I've actually met with a few people recently about, they're looking at other technologies like hydrogen and propane for same for vehicles. Probably still a decade away for large scale adoption, but is that something while we're
Through the chair.
pulling the cover back, something we should be doing?
Yeah, so I think, just looking at the title, it says gasoline or automotive filling station. So I think you're covered on all of your concerns.
seem to remember there being a definition somewhere in the ordinance that says an automobile or gasoline filling station is liquid fuel, right? Isn't there something defined in there?
In the definition section of the ordinance in Article 2.0, Brittany, do you by any chance?
I am pulling it up right now.
What do we define automobile filling stations as?
Oh, I have gasoline filling station pulled up. Give me a second.
The intent is to cover all of them. You're right. I just want to make
That's
sure
what my
if we have
concern
to.
is, that
You just could call it fueling. It could be any type of fuel.
There's not an automotive filling station definition in the definitions. Let me go down to gas station or gasoline. Gasoline filling station says a place for the dispensing, sale, or offering for sales of motor fuels directly to uses of motor vehicles, together with the retail sale of minor accessories, but not including any automotive service repair.
So however, it's listed in our definition section as gasoline filling station. But when we go to the various use districts, we call it automobile filling stations. So we need to have a consistent definition. So if you're calling it gasoline filling station, my suggestion would be that in definitions, the definition is great, the subtitle needs to be changed to maybe automobile fueling station. Fueling would cover all the bases, and we will change filling to fueling. That way, the terminology of use will be consistent, irrespective of technology evolving to include hydrogen or gas or whatever. We'll in the definition section, instead of gasoline filling, we'll call it automobile fueling station, which will cover diesel, hydrogen, everything. We'll change section 5.144 to say gasoline or automobile fueling station rather than filling. And correspondingly, every other zoning district where we have the uses listed, we will just change filling to fueling.
Why would you even need gasoline? Just get rid of the gasoline, right, and call it fueling?
We can just call it automobile fueling station if we don't have to use
I
gasoline.
know that when we were looking at the solar updating for electric vehicles, that we were looking at a set of ordinances like what happens if there is a standalone EV station that doesn't have liquid fuel? Does it still follow and track as a gas station? And what we decided was that, hey, we needed to look at that, and that needed to be addressed in the ordinance. And when we did the EV fueling standard, we would probably need to go back and make some more edits to the gasoline fueling station to get the terminology clear. But for the purpose of this moratorium, I don't know that we necessarily want to revamp the entire gasoline fueling station now when we know we're going to be looking at EV fueling sometime later.
But from an ordinance and planning standpoint, really what you're concerned about is circulation, cars. I mean, for all intents and purposes, probably they'd look similar anyway.
Yes, it would.
I mean,
I would think a EV fueling station would have basically the same requirements as a gas station, whatever this is, gas station, right?
My only concern is, since you brought it up, which is a very valid concern, is every single zoning district lists automobile filling stations as a special land use, but in the definition section, we call it gasoline filling station. The same terminology should be used ideally. So if the Planning Commission is okay with it, we will change just the terminology, not the actual definition. We will just change it in all. It shouldn't be too difficult to list those. We will call it automobile fueling stations, which will cover all the bases.
I think I could even get behind recommending a public hearing for it, make the edit. We understand
All
the
the
edit you're gonna
corrections
make, but
will
I
be
think
before you in your draft for public hearing.
No.
public hearing.
No, I don't see that.
So the next time this amendment comes before you, it will clearly have section 1 definitions, change of terminology, and it will reference change of gasoline filling stations to automobile fueling stations in sections this. We will list out all the sections, so we cover it everywhere in the ordinance.
Can I ask another question? Just to be clear, but these could be for trucks too, right?
Yes.
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 Calling it vehicular fueling stations versus automobile? But just a question.
So,
I mean, is an automobile a truck?
yeah, that's
I
what
mean,
I was like.
I think it
Truck is
covers,
also an
I'm not a
automobile.
lawyer, but I think it covers everything.
Is it a motor? Yeah, is it a motor vehicle, a gas station?
4 spots that it's gonna be applied to anyway, so,
You mean somebody would split hairs and say this is truck, not an automobile?
Car drive a truck.
it's an automobile.
No,
It's an automobile.
No, it's covered. It's covered, Commissioner Grant. I'm sure it is.
They call my vehicle a truck.
What
And
we call a
and it's a
vehicle.
Chevy
A vehicle can be
Traverse.
anything.
A motorized
They
vehicle.
call it a truck.
Just saying.
Again, I'm not a
It
lawyer.
would be challenging
but-
interpretation, and Planning Commission knows and board knows what they approved. So they can challenge the interpretation, and the ZBA can shoot them down if they come to. If they start splitting hairs and saying, I drive a truck, which is not an automobile, what is it then? We're not talking about
Scooter with a
passenger
grocery
car
cart.
filling station, right?
You look at the definition of an automobile, it is a device, a mobile device that is self-driven.
And I,
Oh, boy, that is.
Even a truck
in
is
there. So, yeah, I think I'm good with recommending this up to, for a public hearing if everybody else is.
I am as well.
Likewise.
Anybody? So, do we need a motion to recommend it as a public hearing?
Recommend for public hearing with the changes you have discussed. So,
Just a voice vote, right?
yes.
Okay. Do we have a motion then concerning this item?
Feel like doing it? Mr. Chair, I move that we recommend that staff schedules a public hearing at the most convenient recent date, noting the concerns brought up tonight regarding the change of wording. Staff knows what to do, I think.
We need a support on that motion? Support. We have a motion support concerning setting for public hearing, the gas station zoning ordinance. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, schedule the hearing. Okay, last item for action is the BES zoning ordinance or battery energy storage system ordinance revision number 2. Presentation by staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The BES ordinance before you is a full rewrite. After the last one ran into some confusion about use of terminology. We last time had it as Tier 1 and Tier 2, which in industry parlance did not necessarily translate into what we were trying to accomplish over here. So went back to look at the BES manual that was published by University of Michigan's Center for Sustainable Energy. They published a manual that gives sample ordinances and sample definitions for how to categorize these based on state law. So based upon that, we have added a definition for battery energy storage systems and classified them into 2 systems. One is on-site storage system that is basically intended to serve the electricity needs of the applicant property, but may at times discharge into the electric grid. This is basically what you have in single-family homes. So you generate enough power for your own use, and if there is a surplus, you sell it back, just similar to solar energy on your rooftop. If you generate too much power, you sell it back to the grid, and that helps you with your utility bills. So that would be on-site battery energy storage system. Now, off-site battery energy system is primarily purpose is off-site use through the electrical grid. And they are also in different sizes, 3 different sizes to be specific. The small BES, medium BES, and large BES. These all have different capacities. So small BES has a capacity of 20 megawatts or less. Medium is between 20 and 50 megawatts. And large BES is something that is more than 50 megawatts, or you can also call it in megawatt hours based upon what their discharge capability is. So if you look at some images that I provided to you at the back of your packet, these are not in the online packet, but these are only for information purposes. And the reason why it wasn't posted, I'll give you a copy of the reason why it wasn't posted online was because I could not find a source of these images online. So I do not want to include something officially in a packet if I cannot find the original source. We always cite sources for where we got the information from. This was from random search on Google, but I couldn't find exactly where the drawing came from. So I provided it for you for visualization only. If you look at a small BES, this is considered as a small BES. Yeah. So then we have a medium BES, which is so much bigger. And then we have a large offsite BES, which is a lot bigger. So that is the classification of the various BES systems. So when we go onto the BES, the on-site system, which is generally for single-family homes and stuff, it'll be permitted in all zoning districts as an accessory use, subject to the building code and the National Electric Code, which is the same as you putting in an EV charger in your garage, which still needs to go through the building code and electrical. Solar energy, if you're getting solar panels installed, the BES for your house will be no different. It is going to be the same. Now, small offsite BES will be permitted in M1 and M2 industrial districts as a principal permitted use, subject to all of the standards that are listed over here. And that's based upon what the state law's classification also is. Medium and large off-site BESS would be permitted in M1 and M2 industrial district as a special land use, subject to all of the design regulations noted here, and whatever is cross-referenced, like for landscaping, we cross-reference another section of the ordinance. It'll be subject to all of those. Now, when you look at the actual BESS design standards, we have kept what we had previously proposed with regard to signage, with regard to lighting. Lighting is minimal, only to light up the emergency, whatever number that you have to call. In terms of vegetation and tree cutting, there is a requirement when you have these BESS that they are set on gravel pods, simply because they hold so much power and so much energy. You don't want anything combustible like plant material or vegetation to ignite. So the area that the BESS is usually set in is typically a gravel lot, which allows for percolation. It's a pervious surface.
Very pervious.
Very
It's so that
pervious.
no water pools.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's very pervious, so it does not create any standing water anywhere for it, because these are huge. And these BESS units are placed on concrete pads so that they're elevated and not directly on the ground itself. Only that area will be cleared where the actual BESS units are located. You're not going to clear cut a property for it. Noise was a question that came up last time when the Planning Commission discussed it, and the noise generated should not exceed 60 decibels as measured on the outside wall of any non-participating residence or occupied community buildings. This is the standard that is commonly applied for all BESS, and 60 decibels is, what I'm talking now into the microphone is way, way louder than 60 decibels. So 60 decibels is considered as regular noise levels. However, on a quiet night, if somebody keeps their windows open, which was the question that was previously raised, you will probably hear the hum or whatever kind of ambient sound this generates, which under the regulations that we read based upon the BESS manual is an acceptable noise level that will not impact well-being of people. The point at which noise actually becomes an active nuisance is not there. 60 decibels is lower than that. There is decommissioning plan. This is standard language required for all BESS under state law. Decommissioning fund, we want to make sure, just like cell towers, if for some reason the BESS gets abandoned, you're not stuck with like, what are you going to do? Who's going to like remove all this and clean it up? So that's the fund. The BESS setbacks, the BESS shall be required to comply with the setback requirements for principal structures in the underlying zoning district, M1 or M2. They'll have to comply with it. Height, previously we had it as whatever is in the underlying zoning district, and after discussions we realized we really don't want these shipping containers stacked one on top of the other. We did speak to a company that had approached Director Akers with regard to a BESS facility over here, and we actually had a conversation and said, do you generally stack units? They said, no, we don't. I said, is there any issue in this industry with prohibiting stacking of units? They said, no. State law leaves it up to individual municipalities. You can make a determination. So to that level, we decided that stacking shall not be permitted. Only single units shall be placed on the site. This is a standard shipping container. I think the height of a standard shipping container is 12 or 15 feet. No higher than a standard accessory structure height that we would permit within the township. Fencing requirements. We require that all BESS facilities be enclosed by an 8-foot high fence with a self-locking gate to prevent unauthorized access. All parts of a fence that are facing or visible from a public right-of-way must be constructed of a decorative material such as black painted aluminum or wrought iron. The sides and the rear may be constructed of black vinyl-coated chain link fence. Now, barbed wire fence, this is currently in our ordinance, can be approved by the Planning Commission, although our recommendation is an alternate fence design itself be considered before you go to the barbed wire route. And if the Planning Commission recollects, when DTE came before you for the ASOC facilities approval, they asked for barbed wire initially, and when the Planning Commission was very hesitant to allow it, they came up with a design for their wrought iron fence that had two. One was outward curved, one was inward curved. So you couldn't really mount it. It wasn't an impalement hazard, but you could not scale it. It was 8 feet high, which the Planning Commission can permit the fence height to be. There was the public comment that was received today from Mr. Dark, which recommends that rather than fencing, we should require an opaque solid vinyl masonry wall, etc. The reason why we have not required that type of fencing, even in all our industrial properties, is first of all, when you have a solid opaque fence or a wall, it is first of all a maintenance issue. As Commissioner Jar pointed out to me, with a wall, you also have a graffiti. It's an attractive nuisance. You have a long expanse of wall, somebody's going to want to paint something on it or do something on it. So it's going to become a maintenance issue. Also want to point out that the Planning Commission and the Zoning Code is not just requiring fence, it's requiring fence and heavy double staggered row of evergreens outside the fence. So the site will be fully screened. It's not merely going to be a decorative fence and you can still see the shipping containers. When the landscaping requirements are put in along with the fence, those shipping containers should not be visible. You can probably see the top of them initially till the trees establish themselves and grow, but for the most part, once the trees are well established, the site interior should not be visible. And a look of a solid wall, these sites are pretty big when you're looking at it. These are several acres big. You're looking at a solid wall or a fence going along a street corner, it's not the most attractive look at all. So for that reason, we believe requiring a decorative fence and having vine plus the cost of putting a solid fence like that or a solid wall is cost prohibitive in most cases. And because it's cost prohibitive, it might not be maintained well either, because if the thing gets damaged, they're not going to be so quick to replace or repair it because it's so expensive. Whereas a fence can still be fixed. You can replace the section of the fence with a new fence and put in more vegetation. It's maintenance-wise also, it is more viable. So in addition to the fencing, we also require screening. The screening is subject to section 10.103E, where the ordinance does allow for opaque fence or wall. It does not prohibit it between properties, but it also recommends berming and adding landscaping on top of it. So depending upon the location of the site, if the Planning Commission feels that at a particular site, you would rather have an opaque wall because it can provide more, noise abatement, you can require it. For instance, if a property is located such that the front facing a public right-of-way or something, you can have decorative fence with landscaping. And if the rear portion of it is maybe 200 or 400 feet from a residential development or something, instead of black vinyl coated chain link fence, you can require an opaque fence along those property lines and require vegetation. So the Planning Commission has enough flexibility to require a mix of decorative fencing, landscaping, opaque fencing, or wall if you go between this ordinance and between section 10.103. So whatever works the best based upon where the site is located, the Planning Commission can exercise its discretion and require that. We also put in a clause over here saying the Planning Commission shall have the discretion to modify the standards to reduce the required landscaping or require additional landscaping to meet the intent of screening and minimize the impacts. So if the ordinance requires a single row of evergreens, if the Planning Commission believes in addition to the opaque vinyl fence, you want a double staggered row of evergreens, you shall be able to require that under this provision. Architecture, it's a shipping container. I don't know that a shipping container can be made attractive. Nevertheless, we put in over here, if ever the shipping containers evolve into, they get creative and they start making it look better, maybe that's what they can. Our recommendation would be that, I guess to start with, if it is possible to paint these structures maybe an green or an earth tone so it fades into the background rather than stand out like something white in the background. That could be one of the options to be considered, which is doable from what we spoke to the gentleman who was representing the company. We said, is it a no-no to paint these units? He said, no, they can be painted because after all, they're just huge containers with batteries inside. In that case, you would paint them a color that would blend into the background rather than just stand out like it's something in the background. Ownership changes, these are standard clause material. Finally, we added section 3.115. It's basically just amending the table of the ordinance itself to list which districts they are permitted in. You have to amend the corresponding sections of it itself. I think this new ordinance would cover the basis of keeping it aligned with state law while putting in a whole lot of requirements for landscaping, protection, and screening for the residents of the community itself. We did speak to, Director Akers and I did meet with the representative of the company and bring up the item that was discussed at the last Planning Commission meeting. What if somebody wants to sharpen knives, if you remember? What if somebody wants to put up, I can't forget knife sharpening. What if somebody wants to put up a small BESS unit behind their commercial property and use it for their use and also like sell it? They said that is never going to be a viable option. The capital investment required in order to build even the smallest of BESS facilities, off-site BESS, which is what it would be, is so much that it is simply not a financially viable operation. The same goes for any big company trying to just rent a BESS unit. They said that's also not going to be financially viable. They would have to do capital investment to do it. They would be better off just buying it off the grid during the off-peak hours. So they said, having a small business put in a BESS unit in the back, they said that's never going to happen because that's simply not possible. The logistics of it, the size of the unit, the way it functions, it's not going to work. And the further away you are from the grid, the more power you keep losing as you move further away. So he says, ideally, these are always situated next to a substation or to the grid main lines itself, so you can send the power back in there. I would be happy to answer any questions, make any corrections that you might have before you set this for, if you're comfortable with it, you can set it for a public hearing with changes, public hearing as presented, whichever way the Planning Commission would like to go.
Thank you. I think it's a good ordinance.
Chair, I do have some questions. Only a couple, actually. I'd have to admit, I am concerned about the noise level, the 60 dBA decibels, whatever you want to call it. Just looking into it, kind of being a little bit familiar with, the noise levels, especially in buildings and offices and whatnot. So I looked it up just to give everybody a various idea of what it says. So they do say that 60 is hearing safe. But to describe it a little bit, they're calling it out as normal conversation, so it's like people sitting around normally talking, or an air conditioner running. I don't know how many people want to sit outside and listen to an air conditioner running near their house every day. So, I mean, it's just going to get worse at night, as you mentioned. And people do like to sit out at night, especially in the summertime, and for them to be forced inside, not to have to hear them hum, which eventually over time, after they stop complaining or move, they're not going to notice it anymore because you get used to stuff, right? But if you look at 40 dBA, though, it's an average home noise that's acceptable at the home level. And they describe it also as light rain or computer hum, a personal computer. So to me, it seems like that would be one of my biggest concerns with this ordinance. Other than that, I think it's okay. So that would be, I think, my gut feel is that we probably need to make sure that that's the right number. At least that's my opinion. And
I can look into it to see if these units would, I'm sure, if it is possible for these units to generate lesser noise, we can sure change that. But if the innate functioning of these units itself generates only 60 dBA and cannot go any lower than, if that is the innate component of its function itself, then it would be challenging to change that number.
So I'm gonna bring, I mean, the one thing you don't want to do, though, is say, hey, this thing only functions at 60 dBA, so just tough luck, residential guy. You just have to live with it. So I don't necessarily believe that's fair, but there's distance. You mentioned walls. I mean, if at certain points, and I'm not saying it's, a full length of residential, maybe there's a combination of acoustic walls and landscaping. Not saying you have to do entirely both of them, but there may be some solutions along those lines to help knock down that, that noise from 60 to 40.
So
It's also distance, so.
Commissioner Creel, did you have a comment?
Just to add on to that, is there a way that we can reword where it's measured from?
That was a question I was going to have. I
Because
think
it
the-
says it's measured at the outside wall of any non-participating residence or occupied community building. So that means it could hum at 500 dBA
At the property line.
at at where it's generating the noise, but if it's only measured at 60 at the nearest building, then that's conforming. That's still pretty loud.
But should the 60 dBA be measured at the wall of a neighboring structure on a different parcel, or should it be 60 dBA measured at the property line
Well-
of the BES?
And,
Right?
and then, just to add on to that, in your research with the company that had some of these, did they state what the noise level is that it generates? I mean, are we debating this for no reason?
Well, I don't know
Or
if
are
it
we
matters.
debating it?
To me, it almost
Can I
doesn't.
ask a different, just a slightly different question? What's the maximum allowable noise level in the underlying zoning district? Is 60 dB a stricter requirement than the M1 and M2 zoning district, or is it a more lenient requirement than the underlying? zoning
Noise
district?
levels don't go by zoning districts. We
Okay.
just have a nuisance ordinance where it says noise above a certain level is considered as not being okay.
Is this more lenient or less lenient than that?
Brittany, would you be able to please pull up the nuisance ordinance? It should be in environmental performance standards in the zoning.
There's probably a difference between intermittent versus constant, because that came up
Continuous.
when we.
The ordinance might have that,
Remember
yeah.
when we were talking about the reclamation station?
Yes, next to the
that came
waste
up
management.
there then too.
I can find out more from the industry itself. How much does it generate? Like Commissioner Creel said, what does it generate at source? How does the noise level fall away as you go towards the property line? And whether the 60 dBH measured at a property line is a more reasonable thing or outside nearest residential home? And if that might result in the need for an acoustic wall or not.
And
to
I guess
cut
I
down
would
to-
ask, why do we even have a noise requirement on here? If we have a noise ordinance and someone that was building a steel stamping plant in the M1 heavy industrial district is, I mean, there's obviously a noise standard there. They're not allowed to be too loud. Why is this facility
So the
different?
sample ordinance that was recommended when the state law came about for protection, because the moment people heard of this, they're like, don't want this. So to give people a level of comfort, it was put in with its own noise recommendations. So that was there in the sample ordinance, so we picked the language from that. If we look at our own zoning ordinance, I think the noise levels are, for industrial developments, are probably more lenient than this. What is it, Brittany?
So it says for industrial is 80 decibels at the boundary property line.
At the which property line?
At their property line, at the industrial development.
Boundary property line.
So this says 60 at residential, so.
So it goes beyond
Should
that.
it be, should it be at their property line? So what I can find out is how much noise does this unit, a single unit generate, or cumulatively what happens when you have multiple of these units together? What is the noise level at the property line, and where is it measured?
And when you have two different noise ordinances, one that is an 80 decibel in an M1 measured at the property line and a 60 decibel measured at a house, which one, do they have to meet both requirements, or do they have to just meet the 160 dB requirement, or do they just have to meet the nuisance
The
requirement?
more restrictive provision applies. Whenever an ordinance has got two sections recommending different things, that's why you have a severability clause also over here. It basically says if you have you can have a general noise level for all industrial developments, but if you find that a particular use needs specific attention, you can put in stricter provisions for that, and that will prevail.
But I also think there's a big difference between constant noise and intermittent noise. As an example, residences that are along a main road, right? Eventually, they get relief when, nighttime or when traffic slows down, there's some relief. Versus if you have a source that's constant at that level, that's totally different.
I can get more information from the gentleman in this industry itself, because he was most helpful. He said, if the planning commission needs additional information about any aspect of this development, any data or something, please let us know. We are more than happy to provide it. And, we told them about the requirements for fencing and landscaping and all this, and they were like, yes, anything you need to protect the community, although uses such as these are, once they're built, it's literally not even noticeable. They just stay over there. The biggest issue with them is the aesthetic appeal because they are after all shipping containers. And when you put in all the protections with screening, eventually you're not going to be seeing it.
One of the concerns I have with measuring from someone else's property is if I build my BES and I'm completely compliant, there's no residences around me, and then someone comes along and builds a residence right up against the nearest that they can build my BES, and suddenly they measure on their wall and my facility, which was compliant before they built their house, is uncompliant, that's a real problem.
That's, I
But
mean,
I mean, that's
it-
the problem, because they would apply to them at this point.
But I mean, if you're designing a residential, you know there's an existing problem, you design to it. And I think that, well, the thing, well, I'm gonna add to that though is, I forget what I was gonna say. But I think you could, it's grandfathered in, just grandfathered in with language or something.
Unfortunately, in planning, I have never seen that work. Somebody will come 25 years after use has already been there and say, no, I'm not okay with it. You need to change what you're doing. That's why we have the Right to Farm Act. That's exactly why the Right to Farm Act came about, because people would go next to a working, functioning farm and say, I cannot stand the smell of cattle or cattle manure. I mean, the farm came first. You built your house knowing very well the farm was there. And that's why the Right to Farm Act was put in to protect existing uses. We don't have stuff like that. So what's going to happen is if a house comes later, even though we would say that the best facility is probably grandfathered in, code enforcement is going to get complaints all the time saying it's bothering me.
But then you have to make it the property line then.
That's what I was just gonna
That's
say.
what, that
It's
was what I
gotta
was
go
getting at. I
property
really
line.
think
Which is
property
why
line is how to do
Point
it.
you're making, which is very valid, it should be at their property line so that irrespective of somebody coming closer or further away from them, they will remain compliant. They
Yes.
are not being penalized for somebody else coming closer to them. You be compliant from the start.
And isn't there natural vegetation that can be used to help abate the noise, such as pine trees or evergreen trees, that type of?
Yes, we would be requiring all that, and probably if there is residential zoning anywhere in that direction, we'd probably also require like a noise canceling wall or an acoustic wall. Those are now.
Berm, okay. Because that's, I would
Earthen
think,
berm with planting because soil just cuts the noise, it absorbs the noise as it hits it. So you could also have a berm with landscaping on it. It's a good point. I think measuring the noise intensity at the facility's property line makes more sense so that irrespective of what happens in and around them in the future, they will remain compliant and we know the noise is going to be contained within it.
You think of one more review after some edits before a public hearing, or do you think we could schedule it?
Yeah, I'm not so sure. I mean, I know where this one's going, but it was just more language on the screening and visibility where it says modify the standards to reduce the required landscaping or required additional landscaping to meet the intent of screening and minimizing impacts.
The reason why we put that in is just in case you have, say, a BESS facility comes next to the railroad, and on the other side, you have an M2 industrial development. So in order to meet our ordinance screening requirement, we'll be requiring them to take out existing scraggly vegetation just to put in a berm with double staggered evergreens. So I want you to have the ability to say, industrial backs to heavy industrial, there is a railroad, there is no residential anywhere close over here. So it is okay to reduce. I want you to have that, otherwise, don't want the planning commission to say the ordinance requires it. So take out existing trees that are scraggly to plant. It's never good to take down existing trees just to plant our new trees. Fill in the gaps. You can always ask them to fill in the gaps in the existing vegetation, which it'll allow you to do.
I was happy to see Mr. Dark send in some very good points to know
Yes.
that the public is concerned about it and concerned about the noise. And I really do think that Ms. Christian's explanation of our options regarding fencing and the reasons why you don't want to necessarily require solid walls, but not disallow them either. I think our tools are good enough to address the issues without making it a hard requirement to put solid fencing around. But I just wanted to recognize that we did get a comment in, and that's good.
yes,
Yeah.
I agree.
I will update the best language with regard to noise, and I will also try to tighten the fencing requirements so that I add a noise cancelling wall also as an option. You will have multiple options the planning commission can make a determination on.
Yeah.
I would like you, because not all sites are similarly situated. Some are next to, some are in the middle of heavy industrial zone. So you're unnecessarily asking for something that is just not really contributing towards anything. So I want you to have enough flexibility to be able to do that.
That you could just underline whether that 60 dB or whatever requirement you put in is more restrictive or less restrictive than what could normally be put in the underlying district. I'd appreciate it, just so I know, you know.
This has a substation on it. The little one, medium one doesn't. Does it get bigger? And then the bigger one is the same size as the medium one. I'm just assuming it's gonna get way bigger. Not like it matters. I think the substation is probably gonna be the bigger problem of the two anyway.
That comes out of those.
Well, it's not just sound, I mean, visually, they're larger, they're taller. I mean, just go take a look, run down the street, you can see one.
The one that went in there on Ecorse Road.
One's screening and anything.
Yeah, we have to pay a lot of attention to those when we put those in when we put in a substation, we always have to pay a lot of attention to the screening. Plus, they always want to build them very tall. They
Right.
want to have those bars going overhead to support the wires, so
You
they
reviewed-
take a lot of effort when we have to do a substation, right?
Very expensive too. DTE built the Morton substation that you reviewed and approved.
Yes.
Remember, it had the huge
Yeah.
hedge frame with the lightning rod on top, but that was on the south side of Ecorse. And it was next to the strong drain, I believe, and you required landscaping, you required double fencing. You had a solid fencing to screen it, and then you had a second row of decorative fencing and landscaping on the outside of it. So there was triple layer from Ecorse Road. That was mostly for aesthetic because you didn't want it to be seen. It was next to the ITC corridor, so it had over 500 feet to nearest residential. So you had looked at all of those things when you saw the substation.
Oh, yeah, we did.
Okay, so do we want to wait then on this and have it brought back one more time before we send to public hearing, or?
What does staff think? What does our consultant think?
I would like you to set it for a public hearing. I will make all the corrections, and next time I will take out the red lines and I will put in only the new changes that I have in blue, so it doesn't look so busy.
What were you gonna do with the sound requirements? If they're gonna recommend it for public hearing, what,
Noise requirements, I am going to find out what the industry standard is. I'm going to change the noise being measured at the property line itself. At the facility's property line, not at the receiving resident's property line.
yeah, so the only question I have is relative to travel distance. So let's just say if it's 60 at the property line, what is it gonna be as it moves off the property line? And, if a building were, if you had shared a property line with, say, a residential area, how do you know that 60 at that line is the right one?
We can bring you that data too. We will bring you
Okay,
that
I'm not
data
so-
too. If
I-
it comes
I'm-
before you at a public hearing, you have every opportunity to change it at the public hearing again. A public hearing text does not mean that is it. You can change it, you can even table it at the public hearing and say, we actually want to see one more version of it.
Okay.
It's perfectly within your right to do that, and if you send it to the board has got every right to say, we want this fixed. Planning Commission, take it back and fix it. So there are still multiple opportunities to fix it. I just want us to get the public hearing on so we have a base to work from and tweak it anymore. But I will revise this noise thing and try to get you some background data from the company. So how does noise travel as it moves further down, away from the
Okay, so do we have an action on this?
Well, Mr. Chair, I move that we direct staff to schedule a public hearing for a zoning ordinance with additional revisions as discussed in the meeting this evening.
Support.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jar, supported by Commissioner Pohl. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All in favor for public hearings, in favor of the motion signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And that brings us to the end, general discussion. I do have one thing I want to mention. We were awarded the,
Redevelopment ready?
yeah, economic,
redevelopment ready community certification. Yes.
Redevelopment Community's certification. And it was a very nice presentation and nice plaque that we received. So I did want to make that.
All of those document reviews were worth it. That's what you're trying to say, right?
Yes, yes.
Good.
And is there anything else?
I do have a question. And I'm going back to the property that we talked about at the beginning of the meeting on Haggerty Road, just north of the expressway and the service drive next to the new mobile station. As we all know, they've been, 16-wheelers been pulling into the site, dropping soil. It's piled there and spreading it. Obviously, as you had mentioned, that currently they don't have soil erosion control. But my question is on top of that, and they've been basically, allowing the dirt to go onto the road, and they haven't cleaned it. The rain is kind of helping. But the questions I have to follow up with that is, once they dump the dirt, now we have a big field of dirt. When it dries out, it blows, it creates more dirt. It has a little bit of a blight look as well. So do they have to meet any requirements so that, one, it knocks down dust because there's no landscaping or grass or anything that holds the dirt down? Is there anything that they have to comply with?
There is something in our nuisance ordinance that would prevent you from doing stuff that would cause dust particles that is there in the nuisance ordinance. So maybe they will have to just seed it or put grass seed or something to hold the dirt down.
Hydro-seeded or something?
We'll take a look at the ordinance tomorrow, Brittany, and I'll be here tomorrow. We'll look at it.
With their soil erosion, once they receive the soil erosion permit, there is
Yes.
certain items they have to do to fulfill that as well.
We'll look into that to see if they can address. Yeah, we do not want the dust and dirt blowing out or coming onto the road. That's
Usually when you get your soil permit, don't you have to put up those little fences, those little
Right, the
foot-high
silt
fabric
silt fence.
fences? Silt control fencing so it doesn't blow, yeah, you get a
Yes.
soil erosion permit, you should have a lot of controls, but if they don't have it yet, they probably don't have those controls in place.
In place, and they have been actively filling the site with pulling up 16-wheelers full of soil and dropping it off.
It's there now, it's gonna be on the road.
My understanding is that basically the township is pursuing them to make sure they do that.
Fill that all up.
Okay.
Where's that water gonna go?
Okay, anything else?
I'll say what I said earlier. Of all of the things that we've done since I've been here, I think it's been almost 2.5 years. By far, the number one thing I've received the most comments about is Chick-fil-A coming into town. So people are very excited and curious about what the timeline is, when it's gonna, all that type of stuff, where it's going. So people are very excited to see that coming.
I think they're working with Wayne County now for their engineering. McDonald's is moving really fast. McDonald's wants to be reconstructed,
Yeah.
two of them.
Yes.
When are we getting a chicken shack?
Okay, anything else? Then in that case, I would entertain that motion
I make a motion to adjourn.
Support.
that was mentioned earlier. Yes. We have a motion and support for adjournment. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.